Top 5, a show where we count things down from number 5 all the way to number 1. This week, fan suggestion, I believe. This is not one that I would pick, but fan suggestion, top 5 fictional universes to live in. Top 5 fictional universes to live in. Matthew, what you got? Show me what you got. Is the Rick and Morty universe on your list?
God, no. I wouldn't live there if you paid me. I'd have, caveat. If I were Rick, and only Rick.
Which one?
There, but no. Rick Prime. Rickamus Prime. You know the one.
You mean Rick C-137 or whatever his designation is?
Dude, I do not know. All I know is I watched one the other day and I laughed and I was like, okay, maybe. But here's the thing. This was really hard because all of my favorite stories take place in worlds in which I would never want to step foot.
Yeah, totally.
I'm even looking at this and going, ugh, what can I do? But then it occurred to me, there is one universe where, so I'm, a chunky, balding, gray-haired, kind of hipstery D-bag. And there is one place where a gray-haired, chunky, balding, kind of hipstery D-bag is actually one of the prime players, one of the main players in the main story. So even though something weird has happened to make things look really creepy, I would be okay in the world of Steven Universe. Because like Greg Universe, I have hair that's way too long and I tend to wear sandals all the time. And I'm really bad with money. And even though I don't have a van, I kind of have I have that sort of vibe that says I should have a van, an airbrushed van, maybe with like the Death Star or Optimus Prime. Ooh, no, it should be Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe painted on the side of my van. But I started thinking about that. And initially I was like, oh, it's a joke. But then I started realizing one of the big things that I kind of enjoy about Steven Universe is the body positivity aspects of it. I mean, the main character is kind of a chunky, weird nerd kid. And we have characters floating around like Amethyst and Bismuth. These are characters who, yes, are alien, but also Sadie. You have characters who aren't, your traditional hero types, aren't like the people that you're going to see on the front lines of, say, I don't know, the Star Wars saga, where everybody is either a cute blonde kid or his identical twin, eerie, pale-skinned, dark-haired sister. Or, you can be a roguish pirate, but don't call him a nerf herder. And so when I says the world of Steven Universe, even though it's probably going to have a lot of chaos and a lot of, living mascot creatures and, crazy, awful alien attacks, it also tends to end well. So when the crazy alien attack is over, I'll have new weird friends to hang out with. And so that's why it's my number 5.
All right. Very cool.
Steven Universe is also my number 5.
Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was going to say Steven Universe. I was going to say Steven Universe was my number 5, but that felt too self-referential. So I'm just going to let you guys have it.
Steven with a PH universe.
Yes.
Right.
I like the thing about Steven Universe is that any amount of like wacky, terrible, horrifying action is a punctuation at the end of like long periods of like going to get a donut or like hanging out with your friends or whatever. So that's something that I appreciate is like if bad things are going to happen, at least they tend to happen, every once in a while, not all the time. Also, it's a musical. Now, if that meant that I would be good at singing, that would be cool. If it was a musical and I'm not,
if it was only diegetic sound.
Yeah, if it is a musical and I'm as good at singing as I am right now, then actually that would be really terrible. So hopefully it comes with some ability to sing as well.
Very cool. My number 5 is the magical child universe where we don't say her name. Only if I got to be a non-muggle, if I got to be part of the wizardry world. On the negative side, he who shall not be named.
Right.
So, being able to apparate wherever you want to go, be able to have flying devices, be totally fascinated by the muggle world of technology, but then living in a crooked little house by a crooked little wall by a crooked little creek. That might be fun. So yes, the magical child universe where we don't say her name
We
is my
talked
number
about
5.
that one, and my wife actually said you can't have that one because of the elf slavery. And
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, my next one also is pretty pro-slavery as well. Not that I am pro-slavery,
Oh,
but certainly that
yeah,
is a problem with the world of the wizards.
yeah.
Because I think isn't it only the hoity-toity ones that have the Dobbies?
I I think you inherit them. That's
Oh,
the
Yeah, they're
thing.
okay,
like
Like,
okay.
they're carried down through your family lineage,
yeah,
which means
Yeah.
that
Okay. Well, see,
the
there's
richer
another
ones have
negative,
more.
but at the same time, I can say Levioso.
Right.
yeah.
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
So that is my number 5. Let's quickly get into our number 4. Matthew, what do you have for your number 4?
My number 4 is another one that I'm not really a fan of the property. And there are similar properties that I am a fan of, but I don't think I could exist in a world with, talking animals or if my dishwasher was an elephant. But in the world of the Jetsons, where everything is automated at the push of a button and your car folds down to be your briefcase and you can just go voot and your kids will fly off to school voot 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 and you can teach anybody anything and all the technology looks cool and rounded. It's all like art deco stuff with these little flanges and antennas on top, and even the things that are bad and horrible, like Orbity, are bad and horrible in a way that's cutesy and not murdery. And so the things that I don't like about the Jetsons are kind of overridden by the things that I do. First off, it takes place in the far flung future world of, like, I don't know, 2009 or something. But it also does feature, Mr. Slate, another elderly, balding, fat guy. So it feels like, I have room for advancement. And it is one of those science fiction worlds where the explication is that, unlike reality, more technology made us better. And the things that made us, human, and the things that, again, it's tough to talk about these traditional 60s family values without realizing that they didn't really exist. But the theoretical things that would have made someone who was a parent in 1962, or someone who's an adult looking back and going, gosh, the good parts of 1962 kind of look kind of nice, going to 2062, that'd be kind of cool. And of course, then, George still does have to, clock in and have an abusive boss and all that stuff. And he does spend like a whole day just spinning and spinning and spinning on the treadmill outside. But at least it's not the Flintstones.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
my number 4 is the Jetsons.
All right. Quick correction, Matthew. This way,
Yes.
everybody from now on will understand the differences in these. You said the
Okay.
Jetsons is, and I believe you wanted to say Art Deco. Jetsons is most definitely not Art Deco. If you want to think of different architecture movements,
Mhm.
Art Nouveau is elves. Art
Mhm.
Deco is dwarves. The Jetsons, hold on to your hats, kids, is Google architecture.
What in God's name is Google architecture?
If you have ever watched the Jetsons and you're talking about
Mhm.
the cool buildings and the cool
Mhm.
designs, that is Google
Mhm.
architecture. It is a type of mid-century modern that is typified. Also, if you've ever been to, for listeners, if you've ever been to Disneyland with the future world, that's also
Mhm.
Google
Oh,
architecture.
Tomorrowland.
Yeah, Tomorrowland, future world. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
can
all
see that.
Google architecture. So Rainbow Star,
Ting.
Rodrigo,
Is
what?
it
Yeah, go ahead.
is it is it Googie architecture,
Googie, I
or is that
think.
something else?
Oh no, it's
No, I think
Googie.
you're
Sorry,
right.
no. When I
Googie.
look at this, my the eye in the top of the eye move into Google
Yeah.
architecture, but you're right,
You're
Googie architecture. But it is a form of mid-century modern, which
okay.
has had a big resurgence as of late in many
Sure.
new buildings that are going to be built, and I guarantee you, the rebuilding in Los Angeles will have a lot of modern and mid-century architecture in them. So, anyway.
Oh,
Right.
yeah. I'm totally looking at this. Yeah, this is exactly what I'm thinking about.
Yeah. There you go.
I hate to be this guy, but second point of order.
Yes.
Mr. Slate is Fred Flintstone's boss.
Yes, it's Spacely. It's
You're
Mr.
correct.
Mr.
Spacely.
Spacely of Spacely Sprockets. So there we go.
That's
Congratulations,
a fair cop.
Matthew.
I'll take it.
All right, Rodrigo, we are now into your number 4s. Please let us correct you.
Okay. Yeah. I'll start your footnotes.
Okay.
My number 4 is the world of Captain Planet.
Oh, yeah.
Why the world of Captain Planet? Well, when I was a kid and as I sort of grew into my adolescent years, I would look at Captain Planet and be like, okay, all right, I know what you're trying to say here, but like pollution is just sort of like a side effect of things. Nobody is this like malicious about polluting or poaching animals or doing bad things to the environment. And then I grew up and saw all of the things that all of these nations and corporations do to the environment. And the fact that it's sort of like a win-win-win, right? It's like they extract the resources they want while simultaneously poisoning the people that would stand up to them and employing them in like terrible mines and stuff like that. And I was like, no, I actually, Captain Planet is right. And I wished I lived in a world where there was some sort of group of plucky teens that would summon some horrible eidolon to destroy the plans of like fracking companies and like copper extraction companies that poison the rivers and stuff like that. So we can get salmon back so the whales can come back. So, yes, a world in which at least environmental malfeasance is punished, the world of Captain Planet.
Okay. Very cool. You might want to watch a movie called How to Blow Up a Pipeline if you haven't seen that. All right. My number 4, the Wonka-verse. The world of Willy Wonka. Imagine a world where there's nothing but delicious, fantastic, magical candies, fizzy lifting drinks, meals, the candy that you put into your mouth and it tastes like a four-course meal, everlasting gobstoppers, flying glass elevators. But on the downside, nobody likes the taste of snozberries, and slavery seems to be okay with Willy Wonka. So that's the downside, but on the plus side, all of that candy.
Also, rotten, vermicious knids, a complete lack of OSHA oversight or any type of regulation.
Yeah, exactly.
Endless fat shaming.
We are getting closer and closer.
5 dead children.
We are getting closer and closer to that in this world every single day, Matthew. Closer and closer every single day.
What do Hoggish Greedley and
Grover
Cleveland have in common?
I'm just going to be the person that just says, yeah, let me just have that extra candy, please. Also, give me a goose that lays a golden egg. Time now for our number 3s. And Matthew, what do you have for your number 3?
Now, I went to great lengths to point out in my number 4 and number 5 that these are not properties that I really liked, and that many properties, like, say, if I was going to live in the Marvel Universe, I know I'd be dead. Worst, I'd be a mutant, and I'd be like a Glob Herman mutant. Or in the DC Universe, now I know for a fact that the city of Topeka, where I live, has been blown to smithereens at least 4 times in the days that I've been reading comics. So I'd be dead as a hammer. If you live in Kansas and your name's not Kent, you're probably toast. But my number 3 is an exception to both rules for a very good reason. My number 3 is a universe where you can, in fact, be blown to smithereens all the time. But since it is the world of Grand Theft Auto 5, you're just going to respawn at a nearby hospital, and you're going to be about $2,500 less rich. And the reason...
God, I don't even have $2,500.
Oh, you would in Grand Theft Auto. See, the reason... Like today, I was, just kind of hanging out. This weekend, actually, I was driving around and I saw this really cool purple car. And I said to myself, boy, wouldn't it be great to just leap out of this Nissan and go find that purple car. And as I taught my daughter when we played the game when she was young, we played it without sound. So you would open the door and you would say, "Pardon me, sir, might I borrow your fine automobile?" And then the guy would say, "Oh, of course, let me lie on the ground in order to facilitate this change." And so you would jump in the car and you go for a drive. And then if something bores you, if you're like, "Oh man, this car isn't as much fun as I thought," you just drive it off the edge of something and you'll probably get bonus points. Plus, and I say this because we've mentioned him before, Trevor Phillips is one of the tritagonists of Grand Theft Auto 5. He's a terrible human being, just a reprehensible caricature of everything wrong with every video game protagonist ever. And for a limited time, knowing that I could not die and I just, respawn somewhere else on the map, it might be fun to hang out with Trevor on a very limited basis. Now, does that mean that I am totally down with, going and shooting up places and running over pedestrians and taking illegal drugs and huffing paint and all the things that Trevor does? Absolutely not. But if you say to me, Matthew, you seem to be a pretty decent dude. Would you actually hang out? Are you saying, did you just say to me that you would hang out with a terrible person like Trevor Phillips and enjoy yourself? And I would say, I most certainly did. Because there's no consequences in the world of Grand Theft Auto 5. And that's why it's my number 3. Everything resets to October of 2016.
All right.
Seems like such a good time.
Rodrigo, what do you have for your number 3?
My number 3 is, again, I feel like we're all grappling with the fact that most of these universes
Are horrible.
They're fictional universes where exciting things happen. And so they need a certain amount of like darkness, if not something like very oppressive or whatever. So my number 3 is the universe, or I guess the multiverse of his dark materials, but only if I get to come from like the main world that we see at first.
Okay.
Where I get a pet,
a talking pet,
a talking pet, that also lives my entire lifespan.
Yeah,
like
never leaves you.
That seems great. And if the pet gets killed, then I die, so it doesn't matter. And yes, I know that this is an oppressive world to a large degree. I know that there's a lot of injustice because, from what I understand, the author was just gunning whole hog at the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Which is okay. It's a big institution. People should, question it and gun for it, like anything else. So, there's a lot of that, but also I would get like a little guy. I'm like, hey, little guy, what are you going to do? Oh, let's go hang out. Oh, yeah, let's go.
Let's go eat a burger.
Yep, exactly. Like I haven't read the book. I watched the first couple seasons. I think there's 2 or 3 of his Dark Materials HBO show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very surprised at how little people interacted with other people's like familiars.
Yeah.
You just kind of ignored them. And I was like, this doesn't seem right. If there was a world where like every person was basically 2 people, like I feel like there would be some amount of like ceremony around like acknowledging other people's like critters.
Don't talk to them, anyway. Rodrigo. They're all jealous of our friendship.
Hey, yeah, it's like, can you imagine? It's like, what are you doing here? It's like you have like I don't know. Yeah,
what is your spirit animal?
I don't know. I kind of feel that it would be something that would be very low energy.
Like a sloth?
Or like a koala.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Like a panda.
It would have to be something. I don't know how big they're allowed to get.
I mean, isn't the one girl got a polar bear? So
no, the polar bear is something else.
Oh,
He's
okay.
like that polar bear is just a talking polar bear.
Oh, okay.
It's not somebody's familiar, but the main character's dad has like a full-on like leopard. So that seems to be the upper limit that I've seen. So seems like a bear would be too big, but like yeah, maybe some small lazy bear. And then we'd both sit there and like play on the PlayStation.
Nice.
That'd be
Nice.
cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
All right. Very cool. My number 3 is, in fact, the DCU. I would probably want to live in a city like Star City or Sioux City, maybe even Denver, Colorado. But certainly, I would not want to live in Metropolis or Gotham or Bloodhaven. And even though I went to Reddit to see what was the safest city in the DCU, I'm sorry, Redditors, Coast City is definitely off the list.
They're new kids, aren't they?
They must be, because they were like, hey, what's the safest city in the DCU? And the first one up is, oh, Coast City seems really nice. The next answer. Yeah, Coast City is on the coast and it's got the beaches and it's got a lot of activities. The lights are always bright. And I'm like, you guys don't remember when this thing was burned to the ground and turned into an engine for Darkseid. And then, Hal Jordan went crazy and resurrected everybody as ghosts. And that, man, no, thank you. No, thank you, Coast City. But Star City or Sioux City, I think we'd be fine.
It was actually Mongol and not.
Oh yeah, Mongol.
It's always Mongol.
It is
in the 80s, in the 80s and early 90s. Yes.
Mongol is a parody of Thanos, who is himself a pastiche of Darkseid. So he's like Darkseid twice removed on his mother's side.
Yeah. I always forget that it's Mongol that did that, which is weird because Mongol was like the big bad during that time. I don't know why Darkseid was so off the table so often. And now it's like, hey, we need a universe, bad guy. Oh, it's got to be Darkseid. We've got to do Darkseid.
You know why? My theory, it's the JLU, like Bruce Timm universe. They really rehabilitated the New Gods and the Apocalypse guys.
Yeah.
Well, in 93, Kirby was still alive. So it may be, and it wasn't until after his death that the New Gods, the Fourth World characters, were really so heavily like swept into the DC universe. Because I remember when Mr. Miracle joined the League in '87, it was a big weird thing. People are like, "Oh man, I keep forgetting that the Fourth World is actually part of the greater DCU."
And then that whole Superman Big Barda thing. Ugh. All right. Let us get to our number 2s. And Matthew, what do you have for your number 2?
My number 2 is actually one that I think I could live in for a long time. And that, of course, is the theoretical world hypothesized in the Socratic dialogue authored by Plato in about the year 375 BC.
You want to be chained to a wall and only look at shadows on the wall.
No, Plato's Republic. I don't wish to be shamed to nothing, Mr. Man. But
hey, don't kink shame.
I mean, you do what you do. You have your thing. Your kink is okay. It's just not my kink. But here's the thing. It talks about, especially in my older years, concepts. And of course, that subclause comes after concepts that, especially in my older years, really appealed to me because one of the first philosophical conversations is about aging and how age, sometimes you're unhappy when you're older because you miss your youth, but even though your force is diminished, your mind, like the Platonic ideal of your humanity, is actually much greater. So you kind of look at the world from a more experienced, a wiser perspective. And then, of course, it talks about definitions of justice and things that are important. And as a superhero fan, that's something that matters to me in a world, in a society. And then you also have discussions of how the city or the greater group of things has its obligations to the people that live there as much as the people that live there have obligations to the city. So you look at, the question of political philosophy and you look at just the various allegories that come together here, it all really appeals to me when we talk about, the analogy of the sun. Something must be seen in order to be known. So if you never cast light on those dark places, you're never going to know what's actually in them. And epistemologically speaking, I feel like that is to me the depths of the understanding of the universe. You're never going to find an answer until you look for it. Now, there is a problem that I have to once again admit, even with Plato's Republic, people who have tried to actually bring it into fruition are often not people that I would want to ever be associated with. You know who thought that he was working on Plato's Utopia?
Walt Disney.
Frickin' Mussolini.
Frickin' Henry Ford.
Yeah.
Henry Ford would be another one. You know, you look at characters.
You may think I'm joking about Disney, but Epcot was basically creating the utopic society.
No, absolutely. And if you kind of go further, if you look at Hegel, not Catherine Hegel, but George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, whom I hate, by the way, as a philosopher, do not like him. He is not my guy. But Hegel actually does point out some of the problems in the underpinnings of it. So if you look at like George Orwell, heavily influenced by Plato's Republic, Aldous Huxley, Brave New World, heavily influenced, Starship Troopers, heavily influenced by this idea of utopian republic, but also undermined by the expectations of, in those three cases, fictional creators who see only the weaknesses of the characters and so see the weaknesses in themselves. I feel like the idea that a utopia can exist on concepts like justice, concepts like wisdom, concepts like understanding, concepts like reaching to things and saying, let's understand the full truth of it before we decide what it is. That really appeals to me. And that's why in the middle of this pop culture list, I just went on this 5-minute tangent about ancient philosophy. And my number 2 is Plato's Republic.
Very good. Or maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
Debate it in the Discord. We've got a free Discord. You can join it. There's a top 5 channel that you can go in and you can talk about all the pros and cons of the Republic. And I bet you're going to bring something new to the table that hasn't been said by 50 million other people since the age of Pluto and Zeno and all the others.
Right. And don't forget Archimexophes.
I was trying to think of all the people that were influenced by Plato, and I know Zeno was. I was wanting to look and see.
Hanna-Barbera definitely were by the Jetsons.
Yes. Let's see if
that's actually true.
I'm looking here to see the Republic. Oops, sorry, I just passed the thing. And who was influenced by Plato's Republic? Rousseau. Blah blah blah. I could have swore. Oh, those are 18th century nut jobs.
Wait, which Rousseau?
The one that is one of the brothers that made yes, that one.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
No. All right, Rodrigo, let us get to your number 2 fictional universe to live in.
The Stoics. Oh,
no, you don't have to go live in a barrel, poor and naked.
Yeah. So yes, not to be outdone by this great philosophical tangent. My number 2 is God Pilgrims. Like, I don't know if that means I have to live in Toronto, but admittedly, the Toronto of Scott Pilgrim looks pretty cool. I've never been to Toronto in the real world, but yeah, Scott Pilgrim is fun. It's like also kind of a musical and kind of a video game and kind of a comic book and kind of a TV show. Pop culture sort of exists in its own weird state. We see other people interacting with weird things in the world of Scott Pilgrim, so it's not like it's all just in Scott's head or anything like that. Except for that pathway that is inside Scott's head, but that specifically is not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, great world. You can skate between destinations and become a great delivery person.
Yeah, it's also the sort of thing where like whatever makes you mildly interesting is a full-on superpower, right? It's like, are you a skater? That's a superpower. Do you work in the movies? That itself is a superpower because you have stunt doubles available. Are you a vegan? That means you can punch a hole in the moon. So on and so forth, right? It's just like whatever slight thing makes you kind of interesting is like a full-on superpower.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be fun. Would be
Dodging responsibility is a
Yep.
superpower.
Exactly.
Yep, dodging responsibility is a superpower. So much so that you like generate a dark version of yourself. But yes, right? It's just fun times. It's video game logic applied to the real world, which makes it funny. And it is like it's all very like it's also all very mundane, right? It's like a lot of these worlds that we're talking about have big existential threats.
Yeah.
Something like Steven Universe, where like the threat of homeworld always exists. But in Scott Pilgrim, it's about like learning to be an adult, and I mean I'm still working on it, but it would be a lot more fun to work on it, I guess, if also I was as proficient as a fighting game character at actual fighting, and I could do that with my actual demons.
And you could shred the guitar like no one else.
Yeah.
Scott is a bass player. Thank you very much.
Well, and I'm a
Toronto-
drummer, but that's fine. I get what you're going for.
Yeah.
Toronto is like Chicago with, I feel like a little Southern California, like some San Francisco, San Diego. Just in terms of, to me anyway, the vibe. I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Self correction here. Self correction here.
Oh,
when Matthew was talking about Stoics and philosophy, I said, "Oh yeah, live in a clay jar and be naked." No, I got that wrong. was thinking of the wrong Diogenes. Diogenes of Babylon was the Stoic. Diogenes of what is it, Sinope or Sinope? He was a cynic. So you got to get those two correct.
If it's Greek, it's probably Sinope.
Probably Sinope. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So there you go. There's my self-correct. I think we've all been corrected here, which brings me to my number 2. Pacific Northwest. Check. We're already living in a world where conspiracy theories run wild at the scroll of a social media app. So why not make all those conspiracy theories real, make it weird, and make it fun? Of course, I'm talking about living in the world of Gravity Falls.
Mm-hmm.
What a fun, weird world Gravity Falls is. Everybody has a deep backstory that only gets uncovered as you spend the summer poking your nose into everyone else's business. And then when you're done, you get to go back to, where are they from? I think San Diego, right? Is that where the kids are from? I want to say somewhere Southern California.
Oh, really?
I think
For some
so.
reason, I thought they were from the East Coast.
Let's see. What are the kids' names?
Mabel and Dipper.
Mabel and Dipper from?
Piedmont,
California. Yeah. So, I think going to Gravity Falls would be a fun time. Just something about, and Rodrigo lives there, so he can correct me. Something about the Pacific Northwest just seems calming. Something about the Pacific Northwest with green, and I'm okay with cloudy days. I'm okay with the rain. Yeah. I want to live in that, what is it called? Not subtropical rainforest. Maybe a subtropical rainforest.
Like subboreal rainforest.
Yeah, that's it. That's kind of the environment that I think I would thrive in the most. And if a Bigfoot or a bunch of gnomes or a zombie outbreak happens, I can deal with it. So my number 2, Gravity Falls. It's time for our number 1 fictional universe to live in. And Matthew, what are you bringing to the table for your number 1?
My number 1 is a universe that I think has a little bit in common with my number 2, in that it does have a focus on justice. It has a focus on the humanity of the men and the women, and sometimes the not men or women that live in it. I'm speaking, of course, of the world of Star Trek. Now, there are downsides to every era of Star Trek, and I freely admit that. The original series is very sexist, very dated, but way cool and, kind of glowy and sort of a 60s motif. I'm sure Stephen will tell us, where that is. Probably, modern doodly bopperty doodles. But then you get into Star Trek The Next Generation, where we have, I feel like, a major step forward in a captain that accepts that he's bald. But more importantly, a lot of diversity within the crew, representation of, different types, and I feel like planets worth of people. The most realistic, my favorite, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, of course, has the most cynical core, which is frustrating as heck, even though it does feature the cutest couple in Star Trek history in Elam Garrick and Dr. Bashir. But as we go on, I feel like you kind of get into that sliding scale of kind of cynicism versus futurism. And you get to a point where it's hard to find the perfect balance. I really like the Lower Decks kind of look at the universe where you can be kind of a schmendrick. You can be the guy who never actually gets to go up on the bridge and report to the captain, but you still have adventures, you still have fun, you still have life. And the best part is, if, say, once again, you wanted to see what happens to gray-haired old fat guys in that universe, well, sometimes they stick themselves in a pattern buffer for 80 years, come back, get to hang out in the holodeck, meet all the cool people, and then they're just given a shuttle and told, fly off into the universe and have adventures. So I feel like if I were looking for my perfect Star Trek experience, it would probably be that of Next Generation Montgomery Scott, who I believe really summed it all up when he said, "It's green." And that's why Star Trek is my number one.
I wonder what Scotty's biggest catchphrase besides, "I cannot do a Captain." I think it would be, "Computer."
Mr. Computer. See, Scotty is great just for one shot moments where it's just like, whoop. Yep. And you hear that do 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 music in the background. You know Scotty's about to say something.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be no Star Trek tribble at all.
Star Trek, the original series architecture, Matthew, is mid-century modern because the set designers would flood the furniture stores looking for ideas to build the furniture from. So
is there like a specific definition of our walls are flooded with like bright neon pinks and blues and reds at all times? Is that just part of the mid-century aesthetic, or is that
it depends on what you're specifically talking about? Like Star Trek, I mean, those would be, like the hallway lights. When we talk about like mid-century modern, we're talking about clean straight lines, occasional curves. So, with the Jetsons, if you look at the Jetsons, or for people that have watched Finally Friday, and you notice the logo that we had for Finally Friday, which is that kind of boomerang shape, where you see a lot of mid-century tables. That's mid-century. If you watch Mad Men, all the executive suites are all mid-century modern furniture and design. So
you were able to look at the furniture in a show that had Alison Brie and Christina.
Yeah, I mean, so the other thing is my grandparents' house, whenever they built it, it locked in at mid-century modern for its entirety. And so here's a regret, ladies and gentlemen. When my grandfather died, after my grandmother passed and then my grandfather died, the deal was everything just gets sold at auction. Family members can buy stuff at whatever that auction price is, or they can take it out of their share of whatever is sold afterwards, right? My grandparents had this set of the most comfortable couches, these like purplish green aqua, mid-century modern couches that were the best thing in the world. And to this day, I regret not saying, I would like to take the couches, please. Instead, I took 4 paintings that my grandmother did, which I still have, and I still appreciate those.
That's nice. That's sweet.
But I really, really should have taken those couches because they were the best. So yeah, I'm very familiar with mid-century modern. Not my favorite of the architectures. And even today's modern is good sometimes because I like the clean, nice lines. But I think they're pushing it too much with some brutalism with the planked concrete that they pour, and you still see the pattern of the concrete of the wood pallets that formed it. I'm not a big fan of that, but I'm very familiar with mid-century modern. Matthew, Star Trek was almost in my list. It fell off, but I would have probably taken the same thing with you. I would have taken the Next Generation - Deep Space Nine, that time period, just because things seem a little bit more settled, but not living on Bajor or anything like that.
See, I'm really fine with a crazy universe where everything is off the charts and everything is unknown and nobody understands anything, and then weird.
Yeah, but I like wearing red, so
yeah. But gold is a better color for you.
Yeah, probably. All right, Rodrigo. Sorry, let's get to your number one.
Okay, so my number one, I know borrows a lot from Star Trek, and that is the world of Lancer, which is a role-playing game.
Oh yeah.
In Lancer, the core worlds, that is Earth and a few other places, which is called Cradle by the people who live there. Everything is great. All material needs of all citizens are met. People are free to move about the Orion arm of the galaxy without anything restraining them. There is no hunger. Everybody who is sick is tended to. Anybody who has a need is seen to. Anybody who has creativity is fostered, so on and so forth. And it would be great to live in that society. However, not the entire galaxy is this way, right? That's always the point. There always has to be some conflict. Otherwise, what's the point of playing a game or watching a show set in a particular place? The rest of of humanity living out in the diaspora is not so lucky, right? Out there is like all kinds of stuff going on. Big, horrible corporate states, authoritarian governments, all kinds of like wacky and even weirder supernatural stuff going on out there. And I thought, well, obviously it would be great to live in this world if I was living in the core worlds. But if I was living out in the diaspora, at least there would be giant robots, right? It's like, well, if you have to live a horrible life, then at least there are mechs. So my number one, Lancer, all the mechs, or Union, the sort of those core worlds are working hard to help everyone who calls for help through giant robots.
Nice. Mine also takes us off planet. Seems like all of ours are off planet universes. Mine, though, is off planet because the Earth simply doesn't exist. It got blowed up to make way for a hyperspace highway bypass because everybody needs bypasses. But on the plus side, in the world of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you get a fish in your ear that translates everything that anyone says. And as long as you have your towel in your knapsack, you're going to be perfectly fine. So the vast universe of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where if you can stick out your electronic thumb and get a ride on a passing Vogon ship, you can see the galaxy for less than, I forget how much it is, something a day.
Galactic dollars a day.
Yeah, 5 galactic dollars a day, Ulan dollars or whatever it is. That is what I would go for, and that is my number one. Plus, it's just weird, right? You can put a penny in the bank today and then travel to the end of the universe, and you have enough money in your account where you can go and feast on a cow that will come up to your table and tell you which part of its body is the best tasting. And then you can watch the universe slowly spiral down the drain and then return to your current timeline. So, I mean, what's not to like?
I can do that now. I've got Twitter.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen and ladies, there are your top 5 fictional universes we would like to live in. What do you have on your list? Well, I mentioned it earlier. Head over to our Discord server, Discord, in the show note links. You can find it and go and talk with people and have some fun with some really cool people. Also, Patreon. Patreon.com/Major Spoilers is where you can go to get a bunch of bonus exclusive content that you can't find anywhere else. And you can keep this show going for as little as $5 a month. So what are you waiting for? Patreon.com/major spoilers. We will talk with you next time.
This podcast is copyright 2025 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.